And we are back from the last understanding of Ruach HaKodesh and the ministrations. There is also a very interesting point regarding the congregations, though. Those are not the set apart people. And Shaul then explains he had his brother and worker in the faith, Timothy, and sometimes Timothy would send the Megillas along. He was the Megillah delivery person, very friendly of Paul, and he was known as Shaul, but Paul was tiny. That's what it means. Paul means tiny, so must stick with in quote stick with Shaul. And there are many kind of us can understand part of it, and it's important having the proper context. And then it states then that Timothy, he had prayers given to him and the laying on of hands, and then those were in fact by the elders. They had influence in his life and they were prayed over him, and also he had some influence at home. So then we can understand later that Shaul had sent him to a congregation. It is very, very evident. So this is what makes it a whole lot more interesting, because then a person can understand where it's coming from. And it states then, but myself also set for a certain destination. He knew that his departure would be coming, but then he said later he had preserved his anointing. He did his part. The anointing he received because he was functioned. He was able to do his part. But regarding then to the faithful friends of his, and then can easily understanding what it means of having Timothy, and he was sent to the congregation. So that's why that is the word faith in the midst of it. The faith factor means he was sent to the goys. So it makes it a whole lot more interesting, a person reading, because then start making sense. He was from the line of the set apart. This is what it means. Elders, they were the elders were at. They were in a set apart camp. That's where they were at. They were in groups. They were set apart. So this is what it means. And then later, then obviously how the Shaliach Shaul, he mentioned of Mark himself, and then also Timothy. When Timothy comes, please receive him, because he has the anointing also upon his life. He was prayed over by the elders, and those elders, they were in a set apart camp. These are the line of the Hebrews. It can't be any other way, because then Timothy, he was in a part of his life that he was being functioned. And it's very understandable, because Shaul himself said he was prayed over. And he was a bit shy. It's very understandable. Portions of the information that he sent, and Timothy also was part of it, he was a bit retracted, a bit shy. He was prayed over. It's very obvious he had a function in himself, but he was a bit shy, a bit concerned, a bit, what's the word, out of place in the ministry. But then Shaul kept on going, and you had prayer over, and the elders of the set apart camp, they prayed over you. Have this in mind, exercise it. He knew the existence of the exercising of the senses, because he was from the set apart camp. He was prayed over, and he had people in his home making sure he was on the proper path. And then when Shaul then sent him, then he said himself, receive him, because he has a prayer. He were, in fact, but he was involved in a prayer of the elders. He was only a bit out of a place, or a bit shy of the ministry. But Shaul, he knew he had an anointing upon his life, and he was to exercise it. That's why then later he was sent to the congregation, not to another set-apart camp, because it has to do with the faith. Faith is regarding the goys. So when then the goys would come together for sharing of their faiths, it had to have, the group had to have a person from the set-apart camp. They had to be organized. So then they would send those people from outside of the camp, and they would be ministering to those outside, because they were functioned. So there are many areas of the Megillah of Timothy regarding himself being sent to the congregation of the goys. Goys, they were being made a tzaddik. That's why a lot of people, they read through these, they don't make any distinction. It's very defined. And then he said, this is Shaul, and then, but be vigilant in every situation and endure evils, and do the work of a proclaimer of the relink. And then make sure get the ministry completed. He had a function, ministry. He was only a bit shy. And that's why Shaul was encouraging him. Be encouraged, because you were prayed over. There is an anointing in your life, and you must step out and do the ministry. That's why he was sent to the congregation. It easily comes out when a person has distinction from what is set apart versus what are those goys. People outside being made tzaddik, being made yet his justice, exercising themselves the faith factor until they are taken into the camp. Then a person begins to understand. And this is what he's saying. And then chapter 4, 2 Timothy, verse number 5. But be vigilant in every situation and endure evils. Where would he find evil? Evil would be found only outside of the camp, because the set apart camp didn't have any evil in it. And then, and do the work of a proclaimer of the relink. He had to show them. He was sent at times in areas he had to give this relink. He had to exercise and do the ministry. But Shaul was very sure, because he felt the anointing in his life. He had to step out and do it. But then he was saying this because he knew Timothy was from the set apart. He did speak the language. He had the senses exercised, and Ruach HaKodesh was in his life. It wasn't done in any other way. And then he was sent to a congregation. When he comes, then make sure you receive him, because he has an anointing. And then prior of the 5, it states, don't be hearing those people that are trying to make themselves teacher in their itching of their hearing. And then the 4th, and wilt turn away their ears from the truth and incline after fables. And that's what we have a lot outside, a lot of fables. They think they understand the Holy Scriptures and the renewed covenant. Where are the giftings? They don't have any giftings because never existed. And if they go against these sound teachings from Shaul, then what are their giftings? They have to show a power behind them, functioned to go against what Shaul is stating. Where are the giftings? But doesn't exist. And he warns prior of. And the second, proclaim the word and persist in it with diligence, in time and out of time, admonish, rebuke with patience, paciencia, and be instructive. For the time will come when they won't give ear to sound teaching, but after their lusts would then multiply to themselves teachers in the itching of their ears, and would then turn away their ears from the truth and incline after fables. And that was what he's saying to then Timothy. But be vigilant and endure evils and do the work of a proclaimer of the relink gospel, and then do your ministry. And then when the people, then the congregation would receive then Timothy, make sure they would receive him with respect and consideration, because Shaul was saying he has an anointing. It's beneficial to you. So then begin to be more aware of what Shaul was involved with, and then set apart, and then functions, ministrations, and then congregations. Congregations and set apart people, they are not the same. He must have steps of formation, and this is what Shaul was involved with. He had to make sure that they were obeying Moses and the Torah, and then the functions, and the Ruach HaKodesh, and the senses exercise. They had the whole, in quote, the whole package in himself. Then he had to scrutinize. Yet on top of it, because he was dealing with goys and people from the outside of the camp, he had come up with guidelines based on those factors. It was a huge work. But then people, they have the regular Bibles out there, and they make such a salad out of it, so to speak. And they have no functions, and then when the truth comes, oh boy! But this is what it is. When Timothy comes, make sure to receive him properly, because he has an anointing. He has an anointing from the elders, and he was instructed also in a path, or staying on a path, and the maintenance of the path at home. And he was sent to the congregation. And obviously in the congregation would have other people that never heard the faith before. That's why he had to endure evils mixed with the guys outside the camp. Much more coming up.